Okay, I'm Amina. I'm Muslim. I am a Women and Gender Studies major at ASU, and I'm managing editor at State Press.
Do you mind just telling me like what your first thoughts were back in November when the race was so close with Donald Trump?
I feel like I didn't really grasp the fact that he could be president until he became president. I felt like it would be very embarrassing for America, and I thought of it more in that way more than like how it would directly affect me. I wasn't surprised because I feel like I was bracing for that already when he first talked about the Muslim ban, and people would tell me like, oh, he won't actually do it and things like that, but I'm like, he has the power to do it.
I'm Ann Ryman. I'm a senior reporter at the Arizona Republic, and I specialize in higher education.
What kinds of stories have you been covering recently?
Sure, there's a lot of concern on the university campuses about how the travel ban will affect the students who are here currently and also future students. I recently interviewed a instructor at the University of Arizona, and the concern there is they are getting ready to admit students for the fall for graduate programs. And some of the students from the 7 countries that have been identified, they're kind of not sure what to do yet. Like, do you offer them a position at the university? Do you try to bring them in for an interview? It's really unclear kind of how that's going to play out. Like at this point, you would try to obviously bring them in and offer them that position. But there's also a question about will students even want to come to the United States? Or if they had a choice of perhaps going to Canada, maybe they would go that route.
People were like, oh, it's not logistically, it wouldn't work out, but I really think that there are other ways of a Muslim ban. It's not like he outright said, like, I'm going to ban Muslims. He would ban people from coming to America from certain countries with Muslim majorities. So it's like a slow process. So I felt like it was kind of a start to something worse. And I know that's probably cynical of me to say, but I wasn't surprised.
I was at a rally over at Arizona State University recently, and there were a couple of students there who were from the countries that have been identified, and they were concerned about things like one student had not been home for probably 3 years, but his question was, well, could I even go home for a visit and come back, or am I likely to get stopped? Or even if I don't get stopped, could it be possibly will I be subject to a lot of questions? So he was actually going to put off any sort of visits home because he's concerned that if he goes home, he won't be able to get back.
I've definitely written a lot about it. As far as protests and marches go, to be honest, I hate being like that token person. So I feel like that in the back of my mind, I just don't want to go to protests and marches, just like I don't want to go out to certain places some days because I feel like I just don't want to be in that space where I'm the only one or I'm like tokenized, if that makes sense. Maybe that's being dramatic. But I don't know, I just feel like my whole life is kind of a protest. I feel like wearing a headscarf and being so visibly Muslim to me is like a daily protest. And even if I don't want it to be, most days I don't. So I really respect people who go out and protest and march, but a lot of days, like, I just don't feel like it.
One student conveyed to me she's graduating with a graduate degree later this year, and she's concerned about if I send my resume out, is it going to be, how will it be received? Like, will my chances of getting a job still be good, or will there be maybe some anti-immigrant sentiment that's out there? When I went to it was a protest rally at ASU that maybe drew 150 or so people, one of the students made that comment as she was leaving. She was actually smiling when she left the rally, and she said, I feel a great deal of support today.
When I go to larger cities, like if I go to LA, or a lot of my cousins live in London, I just feel so much more invisible, and it feels so good.